Welcome to the silent verdict.
With Clara Monroe and Elias Gray.
Imagine the ultimate traffic jam. Tow trucks. Getting towed.
Huh. Yeah, it's quite the image. But what's fascinating here isn't just, the visual, but the story it tells about the rules of the road.
Exactly. And who gets to enforce them?
Right.
That picture, the enforcers being enforced upon, that's really where our kicks off today.
Okay.
We're looking at a recent situation out of Kansas City, Missouri. Police there took action against what they called predatory tow truck companies by actually towing their trucks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. A listener sent us a report on this from OttawaWire.com, and honestly, it just sparked a ton of questions.
I bet. Like, what exactly was going on?
Right. What led to this? What does it mean for towing rules for us as vehicle owners?
Sure.
So our mission today is basically to unpack this Kansas City event, pull out the key facts, and, explore the bigger picture around towing practices.
Okay, so let's get right to it then. The report says, what, April 25th?
Yeah, April 25th.
The Kansas City Police Department's Property Crimes Division?
The theft guys, basically.
Right. They conducted these busts, as the report calls them.
Busts.
And the target, tow trucks. Trucks they believed were involved in predatory towing schemes.
And the report didn't shy away from the irony, did it? Called it delicious irony.
It does have that quality, yeah. Almost like darkly funny.
But it makes you ask immediately, what were these companies allegedly doing? What's predatory towing in this context?
Well, the report suggests it was a response to a growing trend, not just in Kansas City, apparently, but other big cities, too.
Okay.
The problem was unlicensed tow operators allegedly grabbing vehicles.
To take them?
Seizing them, yeah. And then demanding, huge amounts of cash to give them back.
Feels like holding them ransom.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Paints a picture of, an unregulated mess, really. Potential for exploitation.
But what's interesting, or maybe strange, is that initially, the KCPD didn't give out many details. Yeah, the report said at the time, they hadn't revealed how many trucks they took or who owned them, or even if charges had actually been filed. Just that charges were possible. Why so quiet at first, do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, investigations take time, but the report does mention their public messaging.
Ah, right, the social media stuff.
Exactly. They posted about it, seemed like they wanted the public to know, hey, we hear your complaints about towing.
So, a bit of PR maybe? Letting people know they're on the case?
Could it be part of it? Building that public trust?
It certainly made a splash. And then what happened next is really interesting.
Okay.
KCPD set up a special email address for tips from the public about other dodgy towing practices.
Crowdsourcing the investigations, sort of.
Totally. And guess what? It apparently worked.
It did.
Yeah, the report says tips came in, led to more investigations, more arrests, even more trucks seized. So that first action really opened the floodgates.
That shows the power of engaging the public, doesn't it?
Definitely.
But, and this is really important, we have to remember, the report stresses this too. Allegations, arrests, that's not guilt.
Absolutely not. Due process.
Right. There's a whole legal process still. Prosecutors, evidence, maybe judges, juries, that's what determines the actual outcome.
So speaking of legal stuff, what are the key legal threads running through this?
Well, one big thing is licensing.
Yes. The report had that anecdote.
Yeah, the Detroit area one, about the gas station tow service.
Right. They couldn't tow a car from Detroit itself because they didn't have a Detroit license, just from the suburb.
It really shows that towing isn't just, anyone with a truck can do it. There are rules.
Yeah.
City limits matter.
It highlights how regulations can be like a patchwork quilt. Different rules everywhere.
Exactly. Different cities, different standards, trying to ensure some accountability, presumably.
But does it always prevent the bad stuff? Makes you think.
And it makes you think about what happens after the tow, too, the due process angle.
Oh, yeah. That's huge. Your car's gone. You might think it's stolen at first.
Right. Panic.
Then you find out it's towed. Now you're scrambling. Find the company, find the lot. And often they want cash right now.
And where's your chance right then and there to say, hey, wait, was this tow even legal?
Exactly. There isn't one, usually. Not immediately.
That feels like a big power imbalance. The owner's stuck, needs their car, fees are piling up.
Yeah. It raises serious questions about fairness. Is that lack of immediate challenge like a loophole?
Could be. It could certainly be exploited.
Which leads right into that broader issue. The report hints at loopholes, potential for abuse. This idea that maybe some tow companies have too much leeway, towing cars for What did the report say? Flimsy reasons.
Right, and then charging sky-high fees to get them back.
It just feels like a system that, if not watched carefully, could easily be abused.
Precisely. I mean, towing is necessary, right? For traffic flow, safety, private property rights.
Sure, yeah.
But without strong rules and, crucially, enforcement, you open the door for bad actors.
Which is why it's significant that the report mentioned legislative efforts. Missouri, other states, trying to tighten these laws.
Yeah, that's happening. People are recognizing it's an issue that needs addressing at a higher level.
So, okay, let's try and distill the main arguments here. First, obviously, predatory towing seems to be a real thing in Kansas City.
Yeah, unlicensed operators, taking advantage. It wasn't just one or two incidents, it was a pattern.
Okay. And second, the city's response. The police didn't just take reports, they went out and took action. Publicly.
Right, active enforcement.
Yeah.
Sending a message, trying to show the public we're tackling this.
And how did the public react? The report mentioned.
Celebration, apparently. People in KC were actually happy to see the tow trucks getting towed.
Wow. That says a lot, doesn't it? About how frustrated people must have been.
Absolutely. It shows this wasn't just some abstract legal thing. It was affecting real people, their wallets, their time.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The report gives two ways to look at the police towing the tow trucks. One view. Cynical. It's just PR. A stunt.
Okay, I can see that.
But the other view. Performance art.
Performance art, how so?
The idea that by towing the towers, the police were kind of forcing them to experience the same hassle and frustration their alleged victims felt. Poetic justice, almost.
Huh. That's a fascinating take. Performance art, whether it was intentional or not, the effect was probably similar.
Right, it definitely grabbed attention and probably resonated with people who felt ripped off.
Yeah, it sends a powerful message, regardless of the motive.
And it really throws the complexity of the whole towing world into relief. The report contrasts this with Birmingham, Michigan.
Right, the example where rates were set by the city.
Exactly. City set rates, police involved routinely, accidents, breakdowns, impounds. Sounds very different from the Kansas City situation described.
Totally different model. More centralized, more controlled, it seems. Suggests more transparency, maybe more accountability built in.
Which brings us to that key difference the report points out. Types of tows. You've got police-directed tows, accidents, breakdowns, illegal parking, that kind of thing.
Standard stuff.
Then you have private tows from private lots, usually based on signs.
Ah, the classic towed from the shopping center lot scenario.
Right. And the report kind of implies that's where a lot of the shady stuff happens. More potential for abuse.
Makes sense. Less direct oversight, maybe. The criteria might be fuzzier than, say, blocking a fire hydrant. It's just you and the tow company.
The report even had that personal story, right? About towing in Birmingham.
Yeah, getting called out by the police, late nights, accidents, breakdowns.
Operating under those city rates. Sounds very different. And that other story, the manual transmission car rolling in the parking deck, needing some smarts to move it, shows it's not always simple.
True, it takes skill.
But what was the key difference highlighted in that Birmingham experience?
The crucial point seemed to be that either the owner or a police officer was almost always present during the tow.
Right. Accountability. Justification right there.
Which is a stark contrast to the Kansas City concern cars just disappearing from private lots unattended. That seems central to the crackdown.
Exactly. And the report flags the core issues in those private lot scenarios. Unclear signs, maybe hidden signs.
Or confusing situations like those bagged parking meters mentioned. Is it legal? Is it not?
Right. And then the hassle and the cost to get your car back, it all adds up. Creates a perfect storm for someone to exploit potentially.
Absolutely. Lack of clarity, barriers to getting your property back, recipe for trouble.
So looking back at the timeline, what were the real turning points here?
Well, the first big one has to be the police actually seizing those trucks on April 25th.
Yeah, moving from just taking complaints to direct action. That's major.
Sends a huge signal to the companies, to the public. We're not just listening, we're acting.
And then setting up that tip email. That feels like another key moment.
Definitely. Empowering the public, turning them into, like, partners in the investigation.
Which led to more enforcement. Shows the value of that community feedback loop.
For sure. It lets law enforcement know where the problems really are, directly from the people affected.
And finally, the public campaign. Those social media posts. Performance art or PR, whatever it was.
It was about building trust, right? Showing responsiveness.
Yeah. How important is that, showing the public you're listening?
Oh, it's vital. Transparency, communication, that's how you build trust and legitimacy. Showing you're acting on concerns is huge.
Okay, so wrapping things up, based on this report, what's the verdict in Kansas City right now?
Well, the big takeaway is arrests happened, trucks were seized, but nobody's been found guilty yet.
Right. Still in progress.
Exactly. The legal process has to play out. The wheels are still turning on that.
But it does seem like the initiative is having an impact, doesn't it? The report mentions continued investigations, more actions.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a one-off thing. It suggests a sustained effort.
What could that mean long term?
It could signal a real commitment to changing things, maybe setting a precedent for how towing is regulated and overseen there.
And the report ends on that note of hope, right? That this might lead to real improvements, better practices, more accountability.
Yeah, that hope for better consumer protection, more fairness. That's often the goal when regulations get looked at.
It makes you wonder if this could ripple outwards, beyond just KC.
It could. These kinds of stories sometimes prompt other cities to look at their own rules.
So, boiling it all down, what's the key takeaway from this whole Kansas City towing saga?
I think it really highlights that tension, Towing is necessary, we need it. But there's this real potential for predatory behavior if things aren't watched closely.
Right.
It just underscores how vital clear rules are. And enforcement, and also us knowing our rights as consumers.
Yeah, it makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we really consider the rules around something like towing?
Not often, probably, until it happens to you.
You just assume it works a certain way, and you wonder what systems are supposed to be there to protect you. Or maybe what systems aren't there.
Exactly, those unseen structures.
So the next time you see a tow truck, maybe remember this story. A little reminder that even the towers can sometimes get towed.
Yeah.
It definitely gives you something to think about the next time you park your car, doesn't it?